As we approach the regular season, seeing more and more optimism about the Buffalo Sabres' chances this year. So, starting to buy in a little bit. I'll tell you why. Coming up here in the Locked On Sabres podcast.
Your Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sabres fans, and welcome in to this Tuesday edition of the Locked On Sabres podcast. And thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. You can check us out on our YouTube channel where you can watch the show. Be sure to hit the like and subscribe button there. You can also become a part of our Locked On Sabres text club if you're looking for updates, especially as we get rolling towards the start of the year. Conversation as well, questions back and forth. You can hit us up, join subtext.com/LockedOnSabres. Today's episode is presented by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app right now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Sneaky Joe DiBiase here, just over 2 weeks away from the start of the Buffalo Sabres regular season. We are through another preseason game that is back in the weekend. I actually had a wedding for that game, and this is where I appreciated the text club more than anything because I had a lot of texters telling me what they were seeing, their takeaways. The top line, before I'd even watched a second of the game, I knew from our texters that the top line was looking really good. And after watching it back, definitely agree. So I want to get to a couple of things on the Norris, Benson, Thompson line, which had another phenomenal preseason game and looked really, really strong as we head towards the start of the season. Some injury updates on the blue line to get to a little bit later on. Maybe that's the most negative storyline about the Sabres right now going into the season is that we've got an injury to Mattias Samuelsson, and the pairings are not looking NHL ready for the start of the year, but there's still some time, and we got some takeaways on that. Radim Mrtka is one of those coming up in the third segment of today's show. So stay tuned for all of that. I really, though, I'm falling for it a little bit. Maybe you could say that I'm being naive or this is just what happens every year, although I try pretty hard to stay as objective as possible when I set my expectations for what the Buffalo Sabres are going to be. I try not to click into fan mode when I'm covering the team or talking about the team, and maybe sometimes that has me coming off as too negative, but that's just the way I do it. So when I see a lot of people coming at me with, oh, you think they're going to be good this year? Like, I'm buying in. Like, I think they're going to be good this year. My immediate reaction for months now has been kind of the eye roll. All right, this is the guy that does it every year right here. Every single year, you believe that this is the year. And that there's almost nothing they could do in an offseason to where you wouldn't believe that they've got a chance this coming season. And, sometimes that's right. And sometimes in the past, that has been right on the money, right? Like the past 10 years. A lot of these years have been like that. Even when Taylor Hall signs with the Buffalo Sabres, and it's all right. I mean, Terry Pegula was the guy setting the expectation that time, right? He said in that Beyond Blue and Gold, like, oh, this is not just playoffs, we can win the cup. And now they signed Taylor Hall, and they were like the worst team in hockey. And there's a million other examples. I need to roll down the list of all of those here, as we get ready for this season. However, the more I'm reading about the upcoming NHL season, the more that the news trickles in from out of town. Here's the Florida Panthers already missing, I think, their second best forward in Matthew Tkachuk for half the year. And now, bam, Alex Barkov, who I think is their best player, the shutdown center of this generation. He is out for the season with a torn ACL that he picked up at practice. So now I'm looking at Florida. I'm like, I think they're the deepest team in the league, but can you withstand those two injuries? And if you've heard me this offseason, you know that I'm not a big fan of Toronto going into this year. They were very reliant on goaltending, and they lose Mitch Marner. So I already think that they're susceptible. And suddenly Boston's bad now. Suddenly I'm looking around the division, and I'm like, all right, like nothing here really looks like it's a lock. Tampa is a lock. Tampa, I think, is a lock. Their best 5 players are definitely too good. And I think Ottawa's great, but not everybody does. So I might consider them close to a lock. But again, I don't think that's a consensus. In Florida, who knows? Bobrovsky's 38 years old. They're missing their 2 best players. Like, I could dream up a scenario where they're not going to be bad, but can they be a team around 93 to 95 points? Like, I don't think that's crazy. So suddenly this division that has been the best division in league history for the last decade suddenly looks a little susceptible to a newcomer. So that would not automatically, though, get me to personally, well, the Sabres are going to be that newcomer that jump in and take that spot. But, I don't know how many of you are West Wing fans. The West Wing, President Bartlett, he had a line in that show. At one point, there were like forest fires in Yellowstone or something. And he had a line where he's talking to Charlie, his assistant. And he says, Charlie, you know how I know that the wildfires are spreading and it's only going to get worse in the next 7 days? And he asks, why? And President Bartlett goes, because smart people told me. That's what I'm starting to fall for right now with the Buffalo Sabres. Why is my optimism growing with this team as we approach 2 weeks till the start of the year? Because smart people are telling me that I should be a little bit optimistic. That's why I am getting there. So, a couple of these accounts, the people that I follow, that I trust, that when you go into a year, they're onto it with the numbers and they're really diving deep into these rosters. And, sometimes they're doing film work and whatnot. I got a couple of people that I've seen be high on the Buffalo Sabres, and I got their over-under, which I think is higher than I expected it to be. And that helps in my setting their expectation a little bit as well. But just a couple to run through here, and not everybody's going to have this. I listened to the Athletics hockey show last week, and I forget who's hosting the show that day. It wasn't Don Lucian, who I'm going to get to in a second here. But the 2 hosts that were on that day got to the Sabres, and they're like, this team's not exciting at all. They lose JJ Peterka. They didn't really add anything. Like, I don't really see it. That's out there. There's a lot of that out there, but a couple accounts that are on the other side. J Fresh Hockey. J Fresh Hockey, just one Twitter account that covers the NHL, data intensive. Now, also a writer for Elite Prospects. So, out there in the hockey media, advancedhockeystats.com, picked the Buffalo Sabres to make the playoffs. In fact, it was his number 1 bullet point when he was doing projections for the season, is that he believed that the Buffalo Sabres were going to make the playoffs this year. Blake Micah McCurdy, another one, at Ineffective Math, if you're a follower of theirs on Twitter. They have the Sabres 3rd in the Atlantic Division. Micah has the Sabres 3rd in the Atlantic Division this year at 91 points. Now, part of this for him in the chart that I saw, and I'll put it up on our YouTube channel here for those that are watching, is there's a log jam in the middle of the Atlantic. And that is maybe what we're headed for here, is this log jam with 5 teams that are all just a couple of points apart. What Blake Micah McCurdy has for the Buffalo Sabres going into the year for the Atlantic. 107 points for Tampa, running away with the win. Fine. Ottawa, 2nd place with 100 points. That's kind of how I think of Ottawa. 100 points, that's number 2. Sabres at 3rd at 91. Now, 91 is not a high point total. And if 91 points ended up being the 3rd place team in the Atlantic, that would be kind of amazing. But there it is. The Sabres, 3rd at 91. But again, look at everybody right in there next to them. Florida at 89, Toronto at 89, Detroit at 88, and Montreal at 88. You've got 5 teams all sandwiched between 3, all within 3 points of each other. And that's unlikely. One of those teams, 2 of those teams probably exceeds that expectation. 1 or 2 of those teams probably drops below expectations. Goaltending, power play, 1-score games. The randomness will happen, and you'll get a little bit more variance. But right there, like, hey, this is kind of about how good they are. About as good as a lot of these teams that are in the division. Florida maybe more so only because of the injuries they've sustained, but whatever. Those injuries have happened, and The Sabres have a couple of early games against Florida, by the way, so it helps them maybe as much as it helps anybody. So there's another one. Dom Lucian from The Athletic, who I probably read more of than anybody when it comes to the NHL. His projections, 90.1 points. Now, that probably doesn't make the playoffs. That's in it. That's in it right to the very end. Dom wrote about the Sabres that, quote, highest chance of making the playoffs in over a decade. Now, he only has them at 43%, so that's not projecting them to make it, but it's 43% is higher than if I was just walking down the street 3 weeks ago and somebody asked me, like, hey, what do you think their chances of ever making the playoffs this year? I might have said 30%, 25%, a quarter. And that's higher. So, all right, another one. And reading through Dom's write-up on the Sabres, and this is buying in a little bit to the plan that Kevyn Adams has had. And that has been my biggest sticking point, I think, as well, is believing that the plan set forth by Kevyn Adams, who has not gotten this thing right through 6 years, is suddenly going to have all the answers and is going to have nailed this offseason and propel the Sabres out of the drought and into the playoffs. This guy is going to be the one that does it? Maybe. The answer is maybe, because what Dom wrote about the Sabres that is more even than just, hey, they're going to be tough to play against and they're going to block shots. And hey, here's Mason Gearston, who's going to be this tough grinder goon on the bench and they're going to be intimidating as a team. None of that. Dom just kind of chalked it up to they're deep. The deep hockey team that, they're top players, not on par with the other teams in this division, right? The Sabres' best player, Rasmus Dahlin, on par with other teams' best players. Tage Thompson at number 2, and then who at number 3. Whereas Thompson, as your best forward, he's your second best player, he's going up against Braden Point, for instance, on other teams. Or in Florida, I mean, their top 2 guys are now hurt, but it was Kachuk and it was Barkov. For Ottawa, right? Like they have it's Brady Kachuk. Like these teams have elite players, and then they have 4 of them. They have 5 of them. The Sabres have 2. But depth, okay, all right. I'll listen to it. That, hey, when Ryan McLeod is in your bottom 6 after a 20-goal season, and Jason Zucker is down there after a 20-goal season, and Kulich is going to take a step this year, and I think Benson's going to take a step this year. I am not buying anything on Jack Quinn. And not that I read that anyway. I see anything about Jack Quinn, gotta believe it when I see it. I am not buying into that until it actually happens. But I can start to get down with, all right, Kulich and Benson steps forward. That's realistic, even if they're not big jumps. And they're deep. And I would agree with that. They do have a deep team. Josh Doan leading Utah last year in expected goals, even though a lot of that was on the defensive side of the game, is why he ranked that high. All right, they're deep. Can they withstand injuries as well as anybody else in the division? Florida is probably the other one, right? Because they've just got so many good players. Anton Lundell is going to get bumped up as their Barkov replacement. And there's so few teams that have a center ready-made, just ready to step in that role and be pretty good at it than Florida with Lundell. But are the Sabres after that, in terms of depth? They're deeper than Tampa. That's definitely true. They're deeper than, I think they're a little deeper than Ottawa. They're definitely deeper than Toronto. They're deeper than Detroit. They're definitely deeper than Boston. Montreal is probably pretty close. Okay. Depth, the blue line. And again, the defensive part of it is on point here. The chart that he had about the Sabres and why they'll be good is that shots prevented, they're expected to be one of the better teams in the league because of who their personnel are. So that's just a couple of people. You can find more that have the Sabres near the playoffs, in the playoffs. Not probably many. They're going to have them top 3, but there are more, and you'll find them on the other side. But the smart people that I'm reading and listening to, I'm finding a lot of them are really optimistic, high on the Buffalo Sabres relative to their expectation. And what is that expectation, by the way? Like, their over-under at FanDuel Sportsbook is 86.5 points. That's even higher than I thought it would have been. Earlier in the offseason, I would have thought it was 80, 79.5, 86.5. And that just getting to 87 points is not going to feel great, right? There's definitely worse outcomes. But That's a reasonably good hockey team that is in the high 80s as their median projection on the season, because that means there's a lot higher that can get you into the mid 90s and maybe even the high 90s. So I'm feeling a little bit more hopeful. We'll talk more about it as we get through the next couple of weeks and onto the Rangers game to start the year. When we come back, the top line against Detroit was awesome. Injuries to the blue line coming up on Locked On Sabres. Today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast is presented by Monarch Money. Most people can't name where all their financial accounts are or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money, an all-in-one personal finance tool that'll bring your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONNHL. Sneaky Joe DiBiase back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. We talk about some more hockey, I'm sure, on WGR Sports Radio 550 as well. So the Bills have, their comfortable, boring wins against bad teams, which seem to keep rolling in. So as we approach the season, a couple more preseason games to go through. Saturday, I know it's a few days back now. I had a wedding, and thanks to our text club, who a lot of them were like, the top line looked great. Top line looked awesome. Look for Zach Benson. Here he is looking fast again. Up the ice, Zach Benson's speed definitely, I think, is on another level than it was last year. And I kind of can't wait to see the numbers on that once the regular season gets rolling. We get the NHL Edge stats back. One part of that top line that was on display very clearly and obviously on Saturday, because it immediately led to 2 goals by the Buffalo Sabres, is Josh Norris is really good at faceoffs. Really good at faceoffs. And that could be important, because for years, I'm thinking of Cody Eakin for this. I'm thinking of Vladimir Sobotka for this. These were players, those two I specifically remember, that were bad players that were often on the ice in the most important situations for the Buffalo Sabres because they needed them out there to win the draw. And then when they did, if they did, I'm left with a bad player out there in the most important spot. And that sucks. And in recent years, I don't know, really, it's always been a rotation who's been that guy. But if Josh Norris is going to come out here and be really good at faceoffs, and this is not new, this is not surprising. He's 52.5% for his career, which is a very good number. So Norris coming in and being able to do that, by the way, his big year in Ottawa, he was, or last year, I should say, just 53.8%. So a little bit higher than his career average. He's been winning a lot of draws in the preseason. And on Saturday, 2 goals right off of draws. He wins one, and they move the puck around. Benson gets it back to the point, and Dahlin roofs a one-timer in that same sequence. And then in the second period, Norris wins the draw. Thompson gathers it immediately and rips it. 2 goals off of Norris faceoff wins. That's going to help puck possession, and it's going to help that line be even better. So Norris with faceoffs, nice. Benson getting faster, nice. Thompson having a little less on his plate, can focus more on scoring. Like, that line was dominant again on Saturday. Every time they were out there, they were the team in control. They were the team with the puck. Gave them a couple of chances, I thought, but nothing that was overly dangerous. Although I was interested to see scoring chances at the end of it for their line versus their opposing line was 9-7 in favor of the Sabres. So they still won the battle, but it was closer than I thought it would be. So that lines look great, and I'm real excited about them. And that's helping me be optimistic, is when your top line looks as good as it has, that can only keep you hopeful. Just got to keep Josh Norris healthy, because that's the one, right? Like, that any moment that could stop, and really hope that doesn't. So, like the top line a lot. Radim Mrtka, up and down. Liked him shift to shift. He had one really bad error. He gets outworked. He gets out-muscled behind the net, and it is in the back of the Sabres net immediately after. Marco Kasper puts it away in the second period. Mrtka was out there with Dahlin, by the way, at that point. Ben Chariot, Alex DeBrincat, those guys outworking the Sabres in the offensive zone, and it comes out to Kasper, who scores the goal. Mrtka can't get outworked like that. Can't get, not even outworked. That's the out-muscling that's going to keep him out of the league right away. Because otherwise, he looks like he's ready. He jumps up in the rush and he scores a goal. Again, there's physicality. He is aggressive. Like after every whistle, he's cross-checking. He's throwing guys around. Like I think Sabre fans are really liking what they see from him. If you are watching, like this is the guy with the attitude that Sabre fans have been looking for from another one of their top players. From how about another one of their big defensemen, right? That's what you've been looking for. And he's got that. And he can skate. Man, he really can skate. Like I'm excited of what I'm seeing from him because there's puck skills you see and you see that attitude thing, but for him to be as good a skater as he is for his size, I'm trying not to only think of Tyler Myers because they're both wearing number 57, and I don't want to be victim of, or you're only thinking he's Tyler Myers because they both wear 57. I know they both wear 57, but I think he does remind me of Tyler Myers. And a lot of it is that ability to move when you're that big. And he's still very slender for his age, so he's not, I don't think, going to make the league right now. But I did get the question in the text club over the weekend. Do you think he'll get the 9-game look before they either send him to juniors or they send him to Rochester? And I would have told you at the start of training camp, there is a 0% chance of that happening, 0.1% chance of that happening. Sitting here today, I feel like there's a shot. I feel like there's a chance of it. I think that one goal that gets in the back of their net because he got out-muscled behind the net, that one moment, I think could do a lot of damage to his candidacy to be this guy. But there's also an injury at the position, and we should get to that because that plays into what type of chance Mrtka could get here. That's when we return here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. This episode of Locked On Sabres presented by the FanDuel Sportsbook. Everything rolling right now. I mean, preseason hockey, but hockey regular season 2 weeks away. Basketball, of course, a little bit after that. Baseball playoffs. Yankees, Red Sox right now. I mean, you got a lot of great stuff. And, of course, football. It's football. NFL season is here. FanDuel has an offer that you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and you get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's pick a bet, right? Put down $5. If it hits, you unlock $300 in bonus bets that you can use all across the app. Maybe you got a parlay you like for the football season. Maybe you got an over and under for the Thursday game. Maybe you want to wait till the Bills game on Sunday night. Maybe you want to wait till hockey season with a future on the Sabres to make the playoffs if you really liked what you've heard today so far. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com. Download the FanDuel app today to get started. Again, your first $5 bet wins. If you're a new customer, you get $300 in bonus bets if you win. FanDuel.com and the FanDuel app. Check it out today at FanDuel Sportsbook. Wrapping these up here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. The Sabres start the season in just over 2 weeks. So the one thing that happened today is that we have a couple of injuries to talk about. So Mattias Samuelsson injured again. Who is surprised, right? Nobody is surprised. Also, Owen Power not at practice. Little interesting. Why is Owen Power not at practice? Now, he is considered day-to-day, so nothing too concerning. But what's interesting is that with Power out, day-to-day, Samuelsson out, maybe day-to-day, the pairings at practice this morning were Rasmus Dahlin and Michael Kesselring, Ryan Johnson and Connor Timmins, Komarov and Mrtka. That's your third pair. Mrtka in there, Komarov in there. I know a lot of Rochester guys excited about him because he was really good last season, and he's really come on for the Buffalo Sabres in training camp and in the preseason. The fact that he's even getting any sort of a call up here, I don't think he's going to start the year. Mrtka, though, again, if Power's dealing with a nagging injury and Samuelsson's not back by the opener, maybe they keep him around and maybe he's a healthy scratch at the start, and maybe he does get into a game. I think the Samuelsson injury is the big one to watch, though, for him. Because if Samuelsson's out, and that's a big defenseman on the third pair, and Mrtka is perfect between now and the opener, I think he gets a shot. But I think he's got to be perfect. I don't think he can have another moment like he did on Saturday in the preseason game. And shift to shift, he's got to be consistent. So I'm into the idea of Mrtka maybe getting a shot here. But however, it's not a good. It's good and it's a good thing and it isn't a good thing, right? It's exciting that he is making this a conversation. That's exciting. The bad news is, who wants to see the Sabres get saved by an 18-year-old again? We should be done with that. Their blue line should not present opportunities for him to earn a spot this quickly. And I know injury is doing it, but if they are not fully healthy by the start of the year on the blue line, I'm going to be a little bit concerned. However, again, the good news is power is day to day. And if Samuelsson doesn't play, I'm thinking whatever. You manage that. If Ryan Johnson's got to play or if Mrtka's got to play 16 minutes, 14 minutes, I'm good. It's power. Power's got to be good. Power's got to be healthy because he's going to really drive that second pair all year long. So blue line, little bit concerning, but we're at a DEFCON 1, right? Did I do that the right way? Right? Isn't DEFCON 4 the highest? Should have had that ready before I went to it. But anyways, I'm not concerned. I'm monitoring, but not concerned about their blue line yet. We'll see what we get in the next 2 weeks, though, on the injury front. All right, that's going to do it for us today here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. So preseason game number, what would this be? Preseason game number 5 is tomorrow night. Wednesday night against the Pittsburgh Penguins. Yeah, back-to-back against the Penguins, Wednesday and Friday, and then we are on to the regular season. So home, KeyBank Center, then we'll find out the goal song. We're getting really close. Let me know if you are bought in, if you're optimistic, if you're hopeful, if you're reading people, if you see someone that likes the Sabres a lot this year and you want to pass it along, feel free to do that. Text Club, join subtext.com/LockedOnSabres. Also, Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Check them out. Drafts are coming up. Make sure you get all the tips from Steal and Flip. You can check them out wherever you listen to your podcasts. We'll talk to you tomorrow here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.